Roberto Montalvo Jr.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a Texas Ranger with the Company D Texas Ranger Division.
Where are you assigned?
I'm assigned in Alice, which I cover Jim Wells and Duval counties.
And how long have you been a ranger?
March 1st of 2026 will be 7 years, so just under 7.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
I started my law enforcement career in 2004. I became a deputy from 2004 to 2006 with the Jim Wells County Sheriff's Office. 2007, I went with DPS and became a trooper.
2007. You became a trooper?
Yes, sir.
And have been with DPS ever since?
Yes, sir. In 2007, became a trooper, was stationed in Falfurrias from 2007 to 2012. In October 15, 2012, became a special agent with the Criminal Investigation Division. Did that to 2019. March 1st, 2019, I became a ranger in Rio Grande City. Did that for a year. Then I was transferred to Alice.
And where were you working on May 24th, 2022?
So I was stationed in Alice, but I was actually in Rio Grande City giving evidence to the 229th District Attorney's Office in reference to a murder investigation.
So part of your work is also to hold evidence or to organize evidence?
Yes, sir.
And so what happened? How did you end up going to Uvalde?
So I'm also a member of the Company D crime scene team. As on May 24, 2022, I was notified by a message by Company D Texas Ranger Patrick O'Connor. He was our team leader for the Company D crime scene team. He activated the team to head to Uvalde in reference to the shooting.
And what time did you get there?
So the notification that the team was activated was around noon, and I didn't get to Uvalde until around 5:30ish.
So the event was already over, is that correct?
That's correct.
What did you do that evening?
While I was en route to Uvalde to Robb Elementary, I was redirected by Lieutenant Joey Evans to assist Ranger Tyler Williamson at the Uvalde Memorial Hospital.
And what did you do at the hospital?
So at the hospital, assisting Ranger Williamson identify all the victims from Robb Elementary. And while I was there, I made contact with 2 deceased children.
And who were those 2 deceased children?
It was one male child, Jose Flores Jr., and one female, Jacklyn Cazares.
And so most of the children from Robb Elementary School went from Robb Elementary School to the medical examiner's office?
Yes, sir.
But these 2 children went to the hospital and then went to the medical examiner, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I made contact with the deceased children there at the hospital, and then I also made contact with the Justice of the Peace, who declared them deceased, and then I released the children to the funeral home where they were transported to Bexar County Medical Examiner.
So those would be the last 2 children on the medical examiner's number 1799 and 1800.
I am not sure about the number sequence.
Fair enough. And then what did you do after going to the hospital?
After the hospital, I did meet up with Company C Texas Ranger Jason Shea, and I received victims' clothing that he had recovered. Since I was going to Robb Elementary, I recovered those items and then eventually placing them into the administration room there at Robb Elementary for evidence storage at that night.
Okay. At some point, did you take over evidence storage?
Yes, sir. So the lead Texas Ranger, Jose Sanchez, he assigned me to be the evidence custodian for the investigation.
And what's the evidence custodian?
Just receiving, documenting, collecting, transferring, releasing of all evidence or mostly all evidence involved in the investigation. Kind of just being a manager over the property. As
evidence comes in, it would come into you then?
Yes.
As central housing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And because you started being the manager of the evidence, were you sent out on assignments when additional evidence was observed?
That's correct. So on a couple incidents, I was tasked to go collect a few items.
And tell us about those tasks.
So on the first incident was Staff Captain Troy Wilson at the time. He tasked me on May 31st, 2022, to go to Robb Elementary and collect some items that were discovered after the initial processing of the crime scene. Those items were in room 111 and room 112. One of the items was in room 111, a Hellfire trigger snap-on device, and in room 112 was 2 spent cartridge casings. I proceeded to the school, documented my involvement. I photographed, collected the items, and then placed them into the evidence room.
And did you then thereafter get an assignment to go collect 2 more cartridges?
That's correct. On June 6th, myself and Company F, Texas Ranger Nick Hill, were tasked by Staff Captain Troy Wilson to go and collect 2 spent cartridge casings on the outside, the west side of the building of Robb Elementary, and some projectile fragments that came from room 111.
And did that information come from civilians that were working around Robb Elementary?
I was told it was from a cleaning crew. I have no details on who located those items.
Your purpose in being here is just to say when you got there where you found these items. Is that
Yes, sir,
correct?
that's correct.
But this is clearly a month later, is that correct? June 6th?
So one was May 31st, and then the other one was June 6th.
Okay. Excuse me, May 24th, then it would be 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yes.
And have you reviewed, just in the last few weeks, the photographs that you took documenting this work?
That's correct.
Please.
871 and 881, those are the exhibits that you reviewed before coming here to testify, is that correct?
That's correct. I did review these, but I did not take this photograph.
You didn't take the photographs, but did they fairly and accurately depict what work you did?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Can I look at most
Yeah,
of them?
please look at all of them.
And on this one, I took these photographs.
And that is room 1.
This is room 112. I took these on room 111.
And do you recognize the children in exhibit 880 and 881?
That's correct. I'm looking at Jacklyn Cazares and Jose Flores Jr.
The children that you went to see at the hospital?
That's correct. Yes, sir. That's a photograph of the west side of Robb Elementary.
And the windows there at Robb Elementary, does it look like there's been some work done there?
Yes, they've been boarded up.
Okay. And would you stand on the outside of that building in order to put those boards up
That's correct.
in close proximity to where that orange cone is?
Yes, orange cone is a marker for where the shell casings were located.
Thank you. And State's Exhibit 872 is where that orange cone is.
Yes, orange cone is a marker for where the shell casings were located.
Thank you. And State's Exhibit 872?
That's just a mid-range photograph of that same west side wall and a little bit closer of the to the cone.
And it shows the concrete lining at the bottom, the ragged concrete. Does that help us identify where those casings were?
Yes, sir.
And State's Exhibit 873.
And that's just a close-up of the exhibit, the one that we collected, the 2 spent cartridge casings.
And 874 just shows that you've marked those as Exhibit 29. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Next showing you State's Exhibit 875. Can you tell us what we're looking at now?
Yeah, so that first picture that was on June 6th, those first series of pictures that was on June 6th that we recovered those 2 spent cartridge casings. This one's on May 31st. This is in room 112, and this is a kind of a mid-range photograph of Exhibit 55, which is 2 spent cartridge casings.
And State's Exhibit 876.
It's just a closer picture showing Exhibit 55, which is the 2 spent cartridge casings.
And that's the only additional cartridges you recovered from 112, is that correct?
From 112, that's correct.
Then did you move into room 111?
I believe I was in room 111 first, and then I went to room 112. But yes, the same day, just I went to room 111 and collected the Hellfire trigger device.
Showing you Exhibit 877. Is that room 111?
That's correct.
And what caused you to go back and look for the Hellfire trigger system?
So I was tasked, like I said, by Captain Troy Wilson. He advised me that it was ready in a bag on top of the desk. That's why I kind of knew exactly where to search for. And basically to go and collect that device. I believe I was shown a crime scene photo there that day to kind of picture what the device was.
So pictures have been taken on the day of the event or the next day?
Whenever the Rangers processed the crime scene, that room.
And then studied by other officers?
I was just tasked to go and collect those items.
Had you ever seen a Hellfire trigger system before?
Not that device. I believe I've seen a version 1, but I haven't seen that version.
Thank you. And on Exhibit 877, is that Hellfire trigger system, excuse me, I guess we're on 878. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Yes, that's a bag on top of a desk. The Hellfire trigger device is underneath that, is inside that bag.
And 879.
It's just another side of the bag to show the exhibit.
Would you point out the Hellfire trigger system?
This is the Hellfire trigger mechanism.
Thank you. And I just finished, and this is just quickly, but where you started the investigation of Robb Elementary at the hospital, I'm going to ask you if State's Exhibit 880.
Judge, we just asked again for a warning. These are going to be 2 autopsy pictures of children. Just a warning for the audience.
Just of the faces along with live photos, just because these photographs needed to be displayed.
Yes, sir.
And the names repeated.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, these are presented in the same way that the other autopsy photos were presented the other day, so you're welcome to step out if you like. May proceed.
So State's Exhibit 880, that's Jacklyn Cazares. 1399 autopsy number, is that correct?
That's correct.
And State's Exhibit 881, Jose Flores, autopsy number 1400, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's the witness.
May I proceed, Judge?
Please.
So Ranger Montalvo, I want to talk a little bit about, my name's Jason Goss. We haven't met before.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, I'm one of the lawyers representing Adrian. And I want to discuss a little bit about, you first talked about shell casings on the outside. Judge, can I approach the television?
Yes.
Thank you. So, if you can turn around, we got Defense
Yeah.
Exhibit 9 up here.
Okay.
So, I think, if I'm right, that cone was somewhere, maybe in this area here.
It's from the south to the north between the 5th and 6th window.
Okay, so if we counted windows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would be right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And these are shell casings that would be here.
The 2 shell casings by the west side wall, that's correct.
And so I just want to ask a little bit of your experience with, a little bit of your experience with firearms. I'm sure you've been trained generally in firearms.
That's correct.
Are you a firearms instructor, or have you done anything like that?
I am a firearm instructor.
So let's talk about, like, is it TCOL instructor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so TCOL is the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
That's correct.
Right. And a lot of times, as you know, they'll ask people to be instructors, and then you take a class on how to be an instructor, basically how to present stuff, right?
That's correct.
And I mean, some of the classes, I think where you start is, all right, teach the class how you make breakfast in the morning. Something like that, and it gives you a topic, and then you go through a PowerPoint or whatever else when you take that class, and then now, I guess they're helping you to understand this is how you present information to people so they can learn it properly, right?
That's correct.
How many hours do those instructor courses usually take?
I took mine in around 2013, 2014. I believe it was 2 weeks in. It may be short and it may be longer now, but it was around 2 weeks. First week is for the instructor portion, The second, no, I'm sorry. The firearm instructor portion for DPS is 1 week.
Is it-
And I went through a whole different instructor course.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So, and that's, the instructor course is kind of what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You know, actually, for lawyers, it's called like train the trainer.
Yes, sir.
So it's something like that, where they're trying to teach you how to do that. Now, you also can agree, though, that there are some some training courses that involve, like, everybody sitting in a room, a trainer's clicking through a PowerPoint and possible scenarios, right? Like, that's one of the ways that
Yes, sir.
people are trained. Another way is like active, like live simulations of those types of situations, right?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, for instance, in Bexar County at the courthouse, sometimes when we go there, it's like all shut down because they're having active shooter training. And that's when they're actually in the hallways of the courthouse with various scenarios where they're actually going through a simulation of something that's happened.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In your simulations, well, let's first talk about shell casing. So as a general firearms instructor, you know that, I've heard a lot about them, ejector ports eject out to the right on a gun that's made for a right-handed person.
Yes, sir.
All right, and so we know that it's not an exact science, but seeing a line of shell casings here and then up here, and the reason I'm asking is because you found some kind of right here.
Yes, sir.
But I don't know if you know, but there were also shell casings all the way kind of down here.
Yes, sir.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
But it would be consistent if somebody's going down shooting out these windows, which we have heard testimony about. It would be consistent that shell casings ejecting to the left would be ejecting along this grassy area until you get to that entrance. That would be consistent to you.
That would be consistent, yes, sir.
Right, because somebody, if I said, look, Ranger Montalvo, somebody's firing in this window, and you find shell casings over here to the right, that would be consistent with somebody squared off against that window, firing into it, and the shell casings ejecting the way they're supposed to.
Well, we all know that even though it's ejection port to the right, they could be standing here and it's ejecting to the right. They could be having the gun to the side and it's ejecting up, and they can actually be have it upside down
and ejecting.
now it's going to the left.
Right.
So we can't really just assume that it automatically ejects to the right. We just can't assume that.
It's true, but you know, one of the things here is that the prosecution has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt things, right? What we're talking about is kind of probabilities, though, because we don't have the burden. So I want to talk about what's probable. Yes, it can, and there always can be those like, well, there is that one time that a guy approached the school with an AR turned upside down and ejected left, but most of the time that you've ever seen or heard of somebody shooting it, they're not holding it upside down when they're doing it. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Right, and so the probable, sure, there's always all the possibilities, but let's just, they have beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't. We have probabilities, we have possibilities. So the probability is that shooting, ejecting out to the right. That's most likely, right? The most likely scenario.
We recover spent shell casings and we just document the facts.
Sure.
We can always assume, but we're not gonna. We just present the facts.
And I'm with you, but I think you know, because others have testified as well, other Rangers have testified that, you know, one shell casing here or there is one thing, but when they start grouping up in a line like that, it does start to tell you kind of some probabilities of shooter movement.
Yes, sir.
Right. And if you're looking at it like that, you are assuming, if you're going to the scene and you see a line here and a line here, you're assuming that the shooter's standing to the left of that line and it's ejecting out to the right, if you know where their targets are. Like, for instance, each one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and we have this little person here we pointed out. You see this person here?
Yes, sir.
I'm not asking you to identify the person, it's a small person. Maybe not in real life, but on that screen you'd agree with that.
It's a person.
Right, and it looks very small, almost to where you can't see him. And the reason I'm doing that is to point out that the angle and the perception that we have, this would be the size of a person in this photograph. So this car to this person, this car to that person, those are long distances you can tell just based on the size of the person in the photograph.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. So when we talk about, we talk about, I heard you say a couple of times, you said, you were talking about Captain Troy Wilson. Captain Wilson told you, Montalvo, I need you to go, I don't know what he calls you, I'm assuming, probably calls you by your last name or
First name,
Oh,
yes.
your first name, okay. You probably don't call him by his first name. You
No,
say-
I don't.
Yes,
Yeah,
Captain.
yes, Captain.
All right, and so I heard you say that, you know, Captain Wilson said, look, I need you to go out there, I need you to collect these, and you did what he asked you to do.
Yes,
Chain of command, how important is it?
it's important.
How important is it to follow orders that your supervisors and the people above you in the chain of command, if they give you an order, how important is
If it's a legal order, very important.
it? If it's a legal order. Now, you would follow, I'm talking about you would follow that chain of command in a situation like this where there's not any active emergency, you're just going to collect evidence. You, of course, you would follow because you did follow that chain of command, right?
Yes, sir.
You would also follow it if you were in the middle of an active shooting and Captain Wilson is there and said, Montalvo, I need you to go do this. You would go do what he told you to do.
I can't testify to that. I wasn't there.
No, but you would follow your supervisor's orders and commands in any kind of situation.
If it was illegal, that was correct.
Right, like, I need you to go out and call SWAT, or I need you to go and do this over here. You wouldn't say, no, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna stay here.
That's correct.
Right. So if a person is ordered to go somewhere else, if you were ordered to go somewhere else, you would be in dereliction of your duty if you didn't follow those orders, right?
Oh, what circumstances are we talking about?
In any circumstance possible, you're at a mall and there's a shooting and Captain Wilson's standing next to you and he says, I need you to get over here and do this thing right now.
It depends if, am I seeing the shooting? Am I involved in the shooting? Obviously, if I'm involved in the shooting, I'll probably have to handle that situation before I listen to an order.
Well, so you're in the mall and your captain's standing next to you and he says, we need help and you're the one that I need you to go call for this help. Please go call for help in this other location. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
By ignoring an order like that, what are you doing? You're not getting the help that
No.
he's asking you to call, right? You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Well, I mean, yeah, and so in the face of of Captain Wilson telling you, I need you, because he's in the chain of command. Because otherwise, and let's talk about why that's important. Otherwise, what will happen is that if you start inserting your own beliefs over his, what you think is right over his, that can cause a problem in chain of command and in active scenes. You would agree with that?
In training, with involving emergency situations, we've always been taught that, command kind of stops at the threshold, right? On tactical situations, it's your kind of rank stops at the door, because potentially a high-ranking official doesn't sometimes make proper decisions,
I mean, I guess,
and saving lives is I guess the goal.
I guess they don't. I guess maybe they don't. But I think what you're testifying to is that insubordination and not following an order, not following a good order, an order that needs to be followed, because you just personally think that you don't need to do that.
No, if it's a legal order, then we follow it.
Right, because there's 15 people in a hallway, and one person needs to leave the hallway and go and call SWAT, while the other 14 remain.
Mhm.
You wouldn't say, no, I need to be the 15th person in the hallway. You would go and call for help.
Correct.
Right. Because we're not talking about just you
Yeah.
and somebody else. Now let's talk about a group of people. Assigning positions. I need you to go do this. And then after that, I need you to go evacuate these other kids. I need you to go and help and evacuate other children who are still in danger from a shooter. Right?
Correct.
You go, no, I'm not doing it. I'm staying here in the hallway. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't disobey an order like that.
It kind of depends, sir, because if it's an active shooter situation, the number one thing is stop the killing.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree.
it's pretty set standard.
It is a set standard, but there's also other things. It is, you have to stop it, yes, and you do, but you have somebody there telling you, I need you to do this. I don't need one more guy here in the hallway, I need you to go make sure the kids are safe. You get that?
If there's a driving force, you go and stop the killing, sir.
Right, but okay, so 370 sat out in the hallway, you agree with that? They didn't go to that door, you agree with it?
I don't know the details on this.
You know now
Yes.
that 370 people stood out in the hallway, did not go in once the shooter was barricaded. You
Correct.
know that?
Correct.
Okay. Or they were outside, or they were around, or they were this, or they were that. But, and regardless of how you feel about that,
Mhm.
there were Rangers on the scene that didn't go in. You agree with that?
Correct.
Yes, Rangers that were trained just like you. They didn't go kick that door in, did they?
No, sir.
BORTAC went in, finally, kicked the door in. And you know now that the end of the stick on Vortac got shot in the head.
Correct.
And you know that the shield that came in first got shot.
Yes.
He was putting targets and rounds on the shield as they were coming in. And so you know if Ranger Montalvo would have walked through that door without any of that protection, that would have been you, dead. Next, dead. Next, dead. Because that was a fatal funnel in room 111. You agree with that?
I would think that the goal is to isolate, distract, or neutralize the shooter.
That's true. That's true. But stacking a bunch of bodies in front of that doorway, because you can only go in that door one at a time.
Yes, sir.
Right? And when they finally, and they still didn't make it out without the end of the stick getting shot in the head. But at least they had, when the shooter started shooting, they had enough protection that they could find and locate where he was and put as many rounds into him as they could.
Yes, sir.
Right? I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, you know, the shooter, they're showing pictures of him, the shooter's like, it's grouped right here in his chest. They were just, once they knew where he was coming from, they all unloaded everything they had on him. Rightfully so. But before that point, you have a fatal funnel in the sense that the shooter is in a closet directly across from the door, waiting to be a cop killer. Right? That's what he wants, is to be a cop killer. You know that.
I know it.
Well, you know he tried to. It was attempted capital murder of a police officer. You knew that.
As the first incident when they approached the door, I'm sorry, I really don't.
Okay, first incident when they approached the door, yeah, one of Adrian's colleagues was shot in the head
Okay.
at that point. But Wayne Jackson, we know that Wayne Jackson was at the end of the stick on the Vortac team, and Wayne Jackson got shot in the head, turned it around, and I think it made him drop his gun in the classroom.
Yes, sir.
But I guess before that, before they have that ability to go in like that, we had Rangers, we had Uvalde PD, we had Uvalde ISD, we had basically DPS, Highway Patrol. We had groups of officers, all sitting there, all apparently having the same training, and we've had every officer come in and say they would have just run in that room. All of those people did not run in the room at that time. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And there were still shots going on, right? There were shots even 40 minutes into it. There were shots, 4 shots fired later in the process with everybody standing there.
I'm not sure on the timeline.
But you knew that there was the initial 100 and something shots, and that happened within the first 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And then there were some various shots after that point. You may not know the exact time. All right. Because if a claim is made that each one of those shots puts the people in the hall on notice that they should go in, you're saying that you should just go in and one after another.
I'm saying from what I've learned from alert training, which is a standard, is to isolate, distract, and neutralize the individual.
Right. Sure.
Right.
Sure. But the how of it is the problem. You would agree with that in a situation.
It's definitely a concern, yes, sir.
Yeah, because he had the drop. The shooter had the drop, and a dead police officer, you would agree, a dead police officer cannot save a child. You would agree with that?
That's correct.
I mean, they can't. And so one of the things, and Nico mentioned it too, keeping yourselves safe, because it feels horrible later when we talk about it, but keeping yourselves safe is not just a selfish thing to keep me safe. It's I'm keeping my gun safe to be able to hopefully be able to use to help other people. But if I go down, I can't help. If the next guy goes down, they can't help. That takes you out of the ability to try to go in and help save children or adults or anybody else. You would agree with that?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So if I'm a police officer and I say, well, you know, my training says just run into this room, and then I'm hit dead. Next guy goes, well, my training says it hit dead. Training says it hit dead. Training says it hit dead. We have a situation where, yes, I totally agree with you, that if you can get in there, but it's not if you can get in there just by any means necessary, including your death. Those officers that were in the hallway were trying to figure out how to get in. You would agree with that? They wanted to, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, they were trying to and they wanted to, but making themselves dead making themselves dead is not going to help anyone else.
You would hope that the rate entry or the room entry would affect the OODA loop of the individual to attempt to get more people into the room and neutralize the subject. Yes, I know I can't Monday morning quarterback what had happened, but the standard or the standard that alert teaches is isolate, distract, and neutralize.
Right.
The room entry techniques of a 1-man, 2-man, 3-man, 4-man, and possibly affect the OODA loop of the individual, which is absorb, ordinate, decide, and act, and recycle that, possibly could buy time for law enforcement.
I mean, it's true, and it's going and sacrifice it, and I understand that. But let's talk about this. Everybody who is there can't all do the one thing. There also has to be other things that are done, like contacting certain people and trying to get the other children out of danger and out of harm's way. That's also important. You would agree with me?
The standard says neutralize the suspect first, or isolate, distract first.
Well, I know, but there's 100 people there. They can't all do it.
I understand that.
Somebody has to go and do the other thing as well. I mean, you had a teacher shot in the stomach in one of these other classrooms.
Mhm.
Somebody has to go and try to get medical attention. I understand, medical attention, stop the dying, right? Like, and stop the threat and do all of that stuff. But at some point, nobody in that hallway was going into that room.
Mhm.
And other people, you would agree, need help out there. There's other children.
There's other jobs that need to be done, correct?
Right. There's other jobs that need to be done. And if your supervisor is saying, Montalvo, I don't need you here, I need you here, you would, no, I'm staying here. Or you would say, I'll go where you have told me that you need.
Yes.
I will go where you told me that you need.
If it's a legal order, yes.
Right. So, and you wouldn't be doing that out of fear for your safety. You would be doing that. You would be doing that because you know that you have a chain of command that you have to follow, and if it's a legal order and it makes sense, then you have to go do it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as far as the So let me just talk about, I guess as a Ranger, well, you know, you were in Jim Wells for a little bit, and we've been asking a few people this. Like, I am assuming that your involvement with any kind of active shooter situation is investigating it after and not having been through one.
That's correct, other than just a basic level 1 alert training.
The alert training.
Yes,
right.
sir.
And I guess another thing is if somebody didn't get that alert training or receive that alert training, they wouldn't even know the same things that you did about the alert.
Correct.
Okay. But have you ever, because you talked about the OODA loop and I want to talk about it, have you ever been in a situation where you were taking fire or there was fire, guns were being fired around you?
Correct, yes.
You have been in that situation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're a firearms instructor, so you also know about gunfire, and especially rifle fire, that it's loud.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you are trained that that in areas, like urban areas, areas with buildings, even like, I guess, mountainous areas,
Mhm.
right? If you fire a rifle in an area like that, the echo can fool your senses about where the gunfire is coming from. You've been trained about that.
Yes, sir.
Right. Because echo will bounce off different things and make your ears believe it's coming from the right, but it's coming from the left or behind you or wherever else. Because if we want to just break that down, what echo means is just a sound. Judge, can I use the law?
Yes.
Thank you. A sound comes out, it hits, and it bounces. And it bounces, and it bounces, and it bounces. And so depending on where it's bouncing and how, our human ears will perceive the sound. But if we're perceiving, if the shot comes from here, but the echo is hitting our right ear from here, that gunfire, the brain believes the gunfire is coming from that direction, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what echo is. Because the sound of gunfire in and of itself can maybe tell you where a gunshot is coming from, but also can be deceiving about where it is coming from.
That's correct. It could be deceiving.
Right, and so you could get a situation like, Judge, may I press the TV?
Sure.
You could get a situation like what we have here. Actually, Nico, can you move it up twice? Just use the right arrow. Or once. Sorry, once. Thank you. Okay, so we get a situation, and we've heard a little bit. We're going to hear a little more. Not necessarily these cars here. You have to think of it like these three cars are a little bit back here.
Okay.
Because there were 3 officers that were here on the west side as the shooter is coming up the west side of the school. Now, one of these officers gets underneath his car because he thinks that the gunfire is coming at them, is being directed back here at them. Now, with your training experience, we know the shooter was firing into these windows into that building, right?
Yes, sir.
But the echo would come off of that building and it would hit their ears as if that gunfire is coming in their direction. That is possible.
It's possible.
Right. So they're taking cover because they think that the gunfire is coming at them when it's really coming 180 degrees the other way. And that's something that, as law enforcement officers, you're trained that what it sounds like to you alone, you can't believe your senses sometimes, based upon some of those the physics of sound and echo and things like that.
Yes, sir.
Right. And in particular, we know about echo that the louder the sound, I mean, the more it's going into something, the more it can be
Bounce
dispersed,
off.
the more it can bounce off. And I don't know how many of our jurors have heard what that rifle that he had, that Daniel Defense rifle, but they will hear it when these videos come in. But you know that the sound of a rifle like that is extremely loud.
It is
So we're talking about a lot of echo, right?
possible.
Possible. Because we know for sure that it's bouncing off structures and buildings because this is not just an open area. Okay, so when we have this echo, that's one thing, and I think the prosecutor will say, as he has been saying, prosecutor will say, well, you would also maybe have witnesses to tell you kind of, okay, the location of the gun when it's over.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about that, because that's also part of your training, even in active shooter training. Part of your training is, I'm assuming with alert, I read alert, so I know that they tell you this. When you receive information, communicate that information.
Yes.
Get it out. That's how they train you to do.
Yes, sir.
In active shooter, something just like this, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And so, going back to you, you're in a situation, this is going on, somebody's communicating a potential location of the person with the gun. You are getting on that radio, and you are radioing that out,
That's correct.
right? A description. He might be wearing all black, he's supposedly wearing all black, he's over in the teacher parking lot, he's on the west side of the building. Those kind of descriptions, if they were given to you by a witness, you would put out.
Yes.
Now, you would not put that out 30 seconds after the witness told you that, right?
It depends if active fire and you're taking cover and but I don't know the situation. I would assume that once you get the information, you would try to relay that.
Well, sure, and even in the active fire situation you've been in, did you have an opportunity where you had information and you were in cover but still radioing from
Mhm.
cover? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Right, because you get down, but you're still going, and your adrenaline's going crazy in that kind of situation, you would agree.
Yes, sir.
And you start to have auditory exclusion, tunnel vision, all of those things happen, and you've been trained that you have to recognize that about yourself as a human being in that type of situation, because your body starts playing tricks on you, right?
During stressful situations, it has been taught to us that you would lose the auditory disclosure and tunnel vision.
Right. So the auditory exclusion means you stop hearing what's happening, like your ears kind of cut off. Maybe because your eyes are focused or whatever else, but that is something that you're taught and trained that can happen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What that means is that you might not hear everything or hear everything correctly that you're being told.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So the other thing though is what I guess I'm saying is yes, assuming you're not like in a gunfight, like where you're, this guy and I'm trying to do this or whatever, but information is being relayed, you're relaying that information as soon as you can. You agree with that?
You would try to process it and see if it's correct information as well.
Sure, right, because, and that's part of the OODA loop, right? So then it'll set you back in the OODA loop, because now, if they're saying something, but your ears are hearing something different, then you're trying to go, okay, which one is which, right?
Yes, sir.
But as far as descriptions, it says it in the training. It says if you get description, radio it out. If you get this, radio, tell other people that are coming, because the response here, you know, they talk about Adrian being, you know, one of the first. He was there maybe about 25 seconds before other officers are there as well, right? So just with that in mind, once he's radioing, there are now other people that are also at the scene that could benefit from the information of where is this guy? What does this guy look like? What do we look like? You would agree
Correct.
with that?
Yes, sir.
So, and that would be following training to radio out a description or like where something is,
Yes, sir.
right? It wouldn't be considered, like nobody would ever consider that you know of, would not be considered, hey, I'm trying to get other people to do my job for me, so I'm gonna radio a description, right?
No.
That would be ridiculous. That's what you're trained to do, is to get it out and get the information out for the safety of others.
Yes, sir.
All right. So so let's talk about this. When you are, as an officer, when you are approaching a scene, you are trusting, you have to trust what dispatch is telling you about what you're going into, right?
Or what you're observing.
Or what you're observing, right? So let's talk about so let's talk about this. There's kind of an overview here that we can see, and then we can Judge, can I press the TV?
Yes,
Okay, so what the jury's heard. I don't know how much you know about this, but I do know is, obviously as a member of the Rangers, that this was of interest to all of you who were involved in this. And I know that you may not have known this at the time you were collecting shell casings, but you have also seen and know some of the basic facts of what happened.
Correct.
Okay. So you know that this is a culvert here that he just, I mean, he was coming from this street and just kind of flies through here and wrecks his
That's
truck.
correct.
Right. Jumps over this fence here. Now, starts shooting at the people from the funeral home, kind of in this area, that are coming to help him, and then he starts shooting his weapon.
That's correct.
All right. So you know that initially it's dispatched as a vehicle accident, that then becomes a person with a gun, right? So, Adrian, as he's responding, one of the things we talked about with the funeral home director is that he was obviously very emotional. Of course he would be in that situation. I mean, we heard, you know, his kind of blood-curdling 911 call where he's watching this guy advance, you know, with his gun. Now, one of the things he said, and we talked to him about it, and you could tell on the 911 call, he says there's a guy with a gun and he's running towards the school. Okay? Turns out he was walking. You've seen the video of this guy just like, you know, like Terminator, just like walking slowly, getting here, getting to this parking lot, disappearing, right? You've
Right.
seen that. And the funeral home person said, yeah, this white car goes through, but he's already between these two cars, and the white car couldn't see him as they're going through it. Now, I want to talk about that because Adrian comes here. It's radioed that there's a person with a gun running towards the school. And that person is witness one in their indictment, Melody Flores. Now, and I want you to talk about your experience as an officer. You've gotten that call. You see a person here running, right? That's what you're going to focus on. If you've just gotten a call that a shooter with a gun is running towards the school, right? Only person outside running. You would go to what you thought the threat was.
That's correct.
Right. So, shooter hiding here. Adrian goes by, speeding, going about 40 miles an hour on this dirt. Boom, he gets to here, where Melody Flores has now fallen down. It is when he gets out that he realizes he's not confronting the shooter, right? Now, that's a mistake. but it's a mistake that any law enforcement officer could make with those facts, having those facts at the time, right?
That's correct.
Okay, now, is that action or inaction, believing that you're driving to try to intercept a shooter, to believe that you're driving to do that, is that him taking action or inaction?
Action.
Action, right? Because you know, if you've got a car and he's got a rifle, if he turns around and he shoots you, right, like that goes through the car, it could go through the windshield, it can kill you. We'd agree with that.
Yes, sir.
So it is not inaction to try and speed towards the person that what's been called out over the radio is a running person towards the school who has a gun and has just shot at people, right? That's an action. Okay. Now that action, where does it take him?
It takes him to the east side of the building.
Well, the south side.
Or southeast. Yeah.
Right, southeast. We know, and we've been talking about it, you know, that he's now on this side of the building going this way, right?
Yes, sir.
So his action, perhaps a mistake, his action is now taking him, what you can see with the little people here, you can see his action is taking him pretty far away from where the shooter actually is.
Correct.
Okay. And now when these gunshots are going off, as he's shooting the windows, bang, 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 those gunshots are echoing. They would be. I mean, the laws of echo don't suspend themselves. If he's shooting at a building, it'll echo off the building. We know that.
Yes, sir.
If there are other buildings around, echo fire is going to start coming around. So, because of his first action, thinking that he's confronting a shooter, he is now taking himself in a place that is more difficult to locate the shooter. Do you agree with that?
From the presentation, yes.
Right. I'll pass it.
Thank you, Your Honor. With Mr. Goss's questioning, there was an issue about shell casings along this wall. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
As well as defects in windows along this wall. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
Indication being shots are being fired into the wall.
Yes, that would be evidence that shots were being fired against the wall.
And the issue about echo would be then bouncing off the wall and being heard by the 3 officers that come to the ditch.
Correct.
And if there are additional shell casings here, would you expect if those shots are going toward the building, there to be defects in that building?
If there was defects consistent with where the shell casings were located, that would be correct.
And if there are shell casings here, but there are not defects in the building, would that indicate to you from that short distance that the shots are not going into the building?
That's correct.
Could be going directly at the officers,
That's correct.
which would not be an echo.
That's correct.
We'd have to ask the witnesses to look, actually eyewitnesses instead of hypotheticals, the eyewitnesses that inspected to see if there were defects in this building, correct?
Yes, sir. I wouldn't know if there was defects on that building.
And next you talked about communicating is where the location of somebody is part of the training.
Yes, sir.
So if you communicate, he's over there, he's wearing black, he's at the teacher's parking lot, that would be part of training.
That's correct.
And if you communicated, he's over there, he's in black, he's in the teacher's parking lot, that indicates you have that information.
That's correct.
So you've gone through the OODA loop, made your decision to communicate that information to others.
That's correct.
No matter where you got that information, either personally viewing or somebody told you, you made the decision it was accurate enough to talk to other police officers through the communication
Yes, sir.
system. And you were sharp enough to do what you were trained, communicate.
Yes, sir.
information. That indicates no confusion, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
You're doing exactly as you've been trained. And in an active shooter situation, trained to communicate, but you're also trained to isolate,
Distract
distract,
and neutralize.
and neutralize. Correct?
That's correct.
Let's talk about what that means. What does isolate mean?
If you can basically, with fast response, if you can isolate the individual to a certain part of the building, or to even isolate them to outside the building and have the shooting outside, isolating from more potential victims, that would be an ideal situation. Distracting,
The idea of isolation is to isolate from victims.
isolate from victims, yes.
Get to them before they get to victims.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And distract.
Just distracting them from going and getting to the victims, distracting them, maybe just making contact with them and distracting them. You're the distraction, and you encounter that subject, distracting them from the potential victims.
So if you make your presence known, it distracts his attention from the victims,
That's correct.
thereby saving lives.
Yes, sir.
And the final is neutralize.
Just neutralizing the individual, either in a shooting or getting them apprehended, just taking them out of the situation in general.
So during this period that Mr. Goss talked to you about, Adrian Gonzales, if he was communicating to other officers where he was following his training.
Correct.
Do you have any indication that he isolated, distracted, or neutralized the gunman in this case?
It doesn't appear that like that. Yes, sir.
That's his training too.
His training is definitely, the standards are set to isolate, distract, and neutralize.
That's the way.
But Ranger Montalvo, one thing that you didn't know, that the jury knows from our opening statement, is that when Adrian communicated that, the shooter had gone into the building the second before. He wasn't even there. And see, and that's the thing, right? It's like, yeah, so you would assume that at the time he communicated is the time that he knew that this was happening. At the time that he got the information, and he's calling it out over the radio, which your training says. Officers should communicate the following information to responding units: location of the threat, direction of travel, as well as any other known locations, any other descriptions.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Conditions, everything, yes, sir.
Right. So, when he communicates, at that moment he communicates, it is a second after the shooter has already entered the building. Right? So, he does end up, and what the prosecution's presenting to you is if, I agree, he had this information and could have done something about it. But you would agree, if by the time he got the information, the shooter was already in the building, the only information that's good there is like the color of the clothes that he's wearing, right?
Yes, sir.
Because he's no longer in the parking lot.
That's correct.
And evidence can prove that, because we can time it to the second, what time Adrian called that out and what time the shooter entered the building.
Yes, sir. If that was the circumstances, if the timeline shows that,
Right.
that's correct.
Right, and so then now, you got another OODA loop, which is, and I kind of wanted to talk about this. Shots in the building, shots outside the building. That's something that is probably easier to tell if something's outside or something's inside or something's like down the hallway from where you are, even if you're outside and it's happening inside. Right?
Possibly, yes, sir.
Right, and so, and we're gonna see from the officers, we're finally getting to that point, we're gonna see from some of the officers that were there that the shots start happening inside, and Donald Page and Adrian Gonzales from the south side, along with Coronado, will start running into the south side of the building, which is what you're trained to do.
That's correct.
Because now they're going, this guy's not like, he hasn't run around and gone off somewhere over here. They know he is inside the school, and if they do rush inside the school when that happens, that's what you're supposed to do.
That's correct.
Okay. Because it's like you're trying to isolate. So let's talk about isolate real quick. Just may I press the TV?
Yes.
So isolate means like, yeah, keep them outside if you can. And remember, just, and make this assumption, because we've been talking about this. Adrian over here finally gets the information that he needs, what the guy's dressed in, and this is the teacher part. He's on the west side of the building, teacher parking lot. A second before that, this guy has like, whoop, just walked into this thing. Now, if this door is locked, does that make it easier for officers to isolate him outside?
That's correct.
Right, but it wasn't locked, you just walked right in. Okay. If the hallway doors are locked, because now, at this point, Donald Page is pulled up here. Adrian's gotten out from around here, the teachers run off this way. Adrian's gotten out from around here, him and Donald Page are here, they hear gunfire from inside the building, and they run in this south door. So what we've kind of seen is that this door kind of goes like this, and this hallway here, 111, 112 are here. This door goes like this, and they run in when they hear the gunfire inside. Okay, so as they run in and they go down the hall, they're not running down the hall because the hall is full of gun smoke, and they can't, and there's not a shooter in the hallway when they come in. But as they're making their way down the hall with their guns, trying to figure it out, doing all of this, right? You would agree that hearing gunfire inside of a building and running into that building towards the gunfire is action.
That's action. That's correct.
Right, okay. And it's potentially deadly action. And every officer who's doing that knows that they're now in a hallway with a guy with a rifle and they have guns,
That's correct.
handguns, right? And just because I know you know, officers will tend to wear Kevlar vests, which are rated for certain types of weapons, right?
Yes, sir.
So a regular Kevlar vest can stop a handgun round, but it can't stop a rifle.
Level 3 will stop a handgun round.
Right, so somebody shoots you in the vest with a rifle, it goes through the vest and into your body.
That's correct. If it's level 3 protection.
Right, now, to get to that rifle protection, you need to start having like hard plates that are put in there that, like steel, that can actually stop the round.
It's not steel, but it's additional armor to stop it. It'll make it a level 4, and it's more of a Kevlar and then ceramic.
Right. And so if the officers, you know, because I guess some officers just go around with a level 4, is that?
Some officers on their auto carrier, like if you see like a more of a tactical officer and they have an auto carrier, it could be a level 4 protection.
Okay, but like you, let's say, you know, something happens and you go to put on your vest, what kind of protection do you want?
I put it on level 4.
You put on a level 4. Do you know other Rangers that put on level 3? Do you know other Rangers or other law enforcement?
Our soft armor for the Rangers, I would assume that they would put on level 4 protection.
Okay, highway patrol guys that are just out on the highway?
That's level 3.
Level 3.
Yes, sir.
So those officers, if they're out on the highway making traffic stops, pulling people over,
Pistol only.
speeding, and then have to respond to something like this, they would be responding in their level 3.
If they had the time to put on the level 4, which they have it readily accessible, just throw on the level 4.
Okay, and so if they had a level 4, they could put on one. If they didn't have one, though, they're stuck with a level 3.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay, so with level 3 protection, and I'm just saying, it's not that they shouldn't go in, they should go in, I agree with you. He went in. So he went in, but even going in there, it's you know that like that dude comes in the hallway and shoots down that hallway. If you got level 3 on, he hits you anywhere center mass, that's gonna be a problem, right?
That's correct.
All right, but continue to advance down the hall. Now, you know not from the specific part you did, but from later finding out in the investigation, that the shooter used that alcove and came out and pointed a rifle the other way on 2 other officers that were coming this way and shot one of them in the head. Or you didn't know that?
I know that one had a gunshot wound. Yes, he was shot. Yes.
Right, and it was these guys coming here. So one of these guys coming here. So if somebody's in an alcove, the shooter's in an alcove and not presenting his body, these guys here can't shoot. These guys here may not have line of sight depending on where they are. But that rifle round going off in the hallway and an officer saying, you know, he got me, right? So you're hearing all of this. You would agree as an officer that's an emergency, crazy situation, right? That you're dealing with.
Yes.
Right. But you have the option of going, forget this, and running out the door. Or you can stay and continue to try to advance and continue to stay in the hallway to see what you can do.
Well, the alert standard is on the priority of life is hostage, civilians is number 1.
Sure.
Police officers are number 2, and 3 is the suspects.
Absolutely.
So they're above us. The hostage and civilian are above law enforcement, where their life is more priority than ours.
As it should be.
As a standard.
That's right. And that's why I'm saying, yeah, that you would not expect to see a police officer run out here. You would expect him to continue to advance towards the gunfire.
Yes, sir.
Okay. even when one of their officers have just been shot, continue to go towards the gunfire?
Yes, sir.
Not turn tail and run out the other way? Okay. Now, I want to talk about something about going in solo or not. So here's the distinction. If you have not figured out what the decision is yet, right? If you're sitting here solo and you know he's in here, I hear gunfire in here, I'm the only one out here, you know your training says run in.
Run in.
Run it, right. However, if you're sitting here and now people have started to come and you hear gunfire together, well, you're not going to say, well, no, I'm running in solo and you run in solo. Y'all start to actually, now let's come in together. If reinforcements have come, if you're backup or if other people have responded, you would agree with that?
It depends how far, I mean, that's a big traverse field that you would have to traverse. If they're on the other side of the street and they're coming and you hear gunfire, you would hope that to go in and then just to isolate, distract.
Right. But you hear gunfire when they actually get there and pop out. Now, not the gunfire over here, right? Because the gunfire over here we talked about by the time, and it's going to come out, and by the time that he communicates, he's on the west side of the building. He should be he's supposedly wearing black. The guy's gone. The guy's gone into the building, so he's no longer over here. But what I'm saying is that it's a different thing to sit around and go, I'm not going to go until I have backup, versus like the guy is pulling up right there, and then he gets out and you're going, all right, here's the deal, and let's go. Like, let's get in, right?
Yes, sir.
Because none of this training tells you to be stupid. It doesn't tell you like, okay, you go in individually and then you go in after him individually so everybody can be like lone rangers trying to go down the hallway. If other people are present, you are trained to get into a team with those people to try to do what you're supposed to do.
That's correct.
Okay. Distract. Does it actually tell you in the alert training how to distract, or does it just say distract?
It just states distract.
Okay. Yeah, Nico was telling me that's, it's like saying a football player, go win the game, but not really telling them how to do it, right? It's just saying distract. And I guess in your mind, you're thinking of things that you could do to distract, but obviously you can't distract anybody if by the time you know where they are, they've already gone to another location that you don't know where they are. You see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Because what I've noticed about your trainings, I've looked at your trainings, and I've looked at alert trainings, and I've looked at other active shooter trainings, and almost every example involves the officer knowing and seeing the shooter, or knowing where he is. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it's focused on the officer actually knowing, like, I see a shooter, I see somebody walking into the school, he has a gun, go to the shooter. There's a shooter over here, he comes out into a hallway, go to the shooter. I know that the shooter is in that classroom, go to the shooter, right? It all is predicated on knowledge of where he is.
Yes, sir.
Because if you don't know where he is, you can't respond to a place you don't know where a person is. You would agree with that?
That's correct. Unless there's a driving force.
Right, I mean, you can try to respond, but I mean, by the time he figures out he's on the west side of the building, let's say he runs around to the west side of the building and cuts the pie and goes around, and you have to approach tactically and slowly. You can't just run out willy-nilly, right? You have to have cover, you have to see, like, all right, is this guy about to take a shot at me? You would agree with that?
On when you're responding to a shooting, you want to isolate, distract, or neutralize the threat as fast as you can.
Right.
Yes, you would love to slice a pie and do a threshold evaluation, but we need to try to get to the potential victims.
Well, sure, I agree, but you would be the victim if you're just like running if the way you're distracting him is just running like out into his arms while he's got the rifle on you, that would be some sort of distraction. But do you understand distraction as, offer up, not approach tactically and then offer up your life to the guy as a distraction until somebody else comes? That's not how you understand distraction.
No, sir.
We understand distraction, and I know it sounds weird, but it's like, sometimes it feels like that's what's expected, and nobody's saying though that officers don't go towards danger. We all know that that's the role and that's the obligation that
Yes,
people
sir.
have.
You don't want to go towards danger where you're just, you know, running out into a field and then somebody's just right there, because that's not smart. You would try to come around a corner. Even the prosecution agrees you need to be careful coming around a corner to try to make sure that the guy's not there, right? But let's go to.
Governor, that's just a rambling statement. He hadn't asked a question for 4 minutes.
I'll sustain the objection.
To the
Next
rambling-
question.
to the rambling statement. Yeah, I understand. I'll cut it up, Judge. Thank you. I guess what I'm saying ultimately is that had Adrian gone around there at the time that he communicated, if all that lines up, where he communicates this is his location, but the guy's already gone in, then Adrian would just be now on the west side of the building while the shooter is inside, in the classrooms, shooting people. But now he's on the other side of the building, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But where he was, put him on the south side of the building, which allowed them to come up the hallway. Some people coming this way, some people coming this way, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you have that situation, it does create a crossfire. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And crossfire is you have friendlies, people who are other officers, or people who are on your side and not the bad guy. Other officers on the other side of you, so if everybody starts shooting at a guy in the middle of you two, or the two groups, then there's a risk that you shoot each other.
That's correct.
Right. However, in these situations, regardless of crossfire, you would take that shot, even if you knew that there were people right past him. The people that were past him were your own people.
Based on the standard of prior life.
Right. Because their lives in there are worth more than whoever's life is out there, even if it's a guy you've been a ranger with for 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Right?
According to the standard, yes, sir.
Right. And if they had that opportunity to do that, then they would have an opportunity to do that. But in this case, you would agree with me that when we talk about isolate, had the doors in 111 and 112 been locked, and it took him time to get in there, because he was shooting at the door, but there's gunshots through the door, but he doesn't shoot to disable the lock. And you know now that those doors were unlocked.
Yes, sir.
Right. But had they been locked, and he's doing this, trying to get in, you have two teams of officers that are coming in, and he wouldn't have gotten in the room.
That's correct.
Right. And they could isolate him out there in the hallway.
Yes, sir.
And he would be, and the shooter, this monster would be taking it from both sides, because these guys are going in and up the hallway, and he would be taking it from both sides of them trying to neutralize him.
Yes, sir.
Right. But because the doors weren't locked, he just went right in before they had time to come up. And now he's in the classroom with the kids, firing, hundreds of rounds in 2 minutes. And I mean, that's part of the situation that they're in, right?
Yes, sir.
So you can see that some of the circumstances of not locking these doors from either the outside and even the inside make it harder for officers to isolate, distract, and neutralize what they're trained to do.
Yes, sir.
I'll pass it.
Yes, sir. 4 quick areas. The first one is on communicating the location of somebody.
Yes, sir.
The first incident would be if you heard where the person was. The first part of the communication,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, sir.
You hear it from somebody else. The second communication would be to key up your radio and tell others where he is.
That's correct.
There could be a difference in time between hearing where somebody is and communicating where somebody is, correct?
Yes, sir.
But if you communicate where somebody is, that would be on radio dispatch. There would be timing. We would know when that happened, correct?
Correct.
And if you heard where somebody is, either the person who told you, or if you heard it, you could isolate the time that you heard it. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And how much time was in between those two things would be based on witnesses and dispatch.
Yes,
Correct.
yes, sir.
So we would need to hear actual evidence as opposed to hypothesis, correct?
Correct.
As far as rifle protection, there was a rating of 3 and a rating of 4. If you have a rating of 3 and there's active shooter, what do you do?
It all depends on your situation. If you have a level 4 right next to you, you can put that on. But if level 3 is all you got, if 0 protection is all you got, you go in, right? There's some officers that possibly could respond from their house on an active shooter, and they're not carrying any level 4, level 3 protection. Or just any responding officer, it's what you have at the time. You're not going to go home and get, your protection. You're just going to respond to isolate, distract, and neutralize.
And the training, I believe Mr. Goss said that he's looked at all the training, and the training is all about seeing the shooter. But you responded, well, no, driving forces.
Yes, sir.
So tell the jury what the training is about driving forces. What is a driving force?
So a driving force is gunshots that you hear, and then it's driving you to go and handle, neutralize that individual. On certain trainings on alert, you're clearing floors or structures, and there's nothing driving you, so it's slow, methodical, and then you hear a driving force, which is gunshots, and then at that point, it's not slow and methodical anymore. It's get to the gun, go to the gunshots, enter that room as fast as you can, and neutralize the.
So the training is not just about seeing the shooter. It's
No.
if you hear the shots, it drives you to the shooter.
There's definitely some scenarios in the alert training that you're clearing structures slowly, and then you hear a driving force, and you respond to that.
Just wanted to clear that up.
Yes, sir.
We talked briefly. We talked a little bit about some of the stressors and some of the things people go through when there's something like this, or especially an officer. Have you been trained on time compression?
Time compression?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay. So, because what the prosecutor was asking is, when a witness says that something happened, but have you noticed in your own experience that auditory exclusion plus tunnel vision, and also time, your time kind of gets messed up because your adrenaline's so high that you think things happen in closer amount of time than they actually did happen, or further amount of time. Have you experienced that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and that's, so as far as when a witness, any witnesses or officers or anybody in a traumatic, stressful situation, your training tells you that what they believe is going on and happening may not be exactly what's going on and happening based upon how the human body reacts to those things and perceives what's happening to them under that kind of stress. You agree with that?
That's correct.
Okay. Right, so I think you were talking about the training is like in the training, you're kind of clearing a building and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, gunshot, and you run towards the gunshot.
That's correct.
Right. But if you don't know where they're coming from, like if it sounds like it could be here or it could be there, and you don't know which way to run, that would complicate.
You still move, at least go from slow methodical to a more active, faster pace towards what you believe is gunfire.
Right. Even if it's a complete opposite side of where the gunfire actually is.
Possibly, yes.
Okay. And the yeah, and then I guess you had alert training, but not all officers get alert training. Did you know that?
I think it's a standard now.
After this.
Yes, sir.
Right, and so, yes, I mean, and so if something so horrible happens, and now of course, they're given that training, but, training records before this happened, that would tell the story about what kind of training a person got.
Correct.
Okay. That's good.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Recall, anybody?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Ranger, the rule's been invoked, you know what that means. You're released from the subpoena, you're not subject to recall, but please don't talk about the case till you're aware that the trial's over with.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and take your afternoon break, about 15 minutes. Would everyone rise for the jury?